to the next episode of The Healthy Business Leader. I'm joined today by Chris Redmond, who's sitting in Dubai. It looks a bit warmer than I am because I'm sitting here. It's about 17 degrees, which is not warm for Dubai, but quite warm for England. And he's the CEO of RedHolt. And what I like to do in these podcasts is let the individual introduce themselves because they do a much better job than me. So if you could tell us a bit more about what you do, that'd be really cool, Chris. Thank you.
Of course. First of all, thank you, Cameron, for inviting me to do this. It's a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we'll have. So I'm Chris Redmond. I'm the CEO of RedHolt, which is a business that I'm also the founder of with Amanda, my wife. My career background is quite varied. From a young age, I started my first business when I was 19, and I sold that business to an organisation that was owned by Barclays Venture Capital when I was 23. So that was the first green shoots of my entrepreneurial streak, as well as what it was like to go through a transaction or an event, manifesting an event in a mini scale, first wealth generation type of moment for me as well. I've held big corporate roles. I've worked extremely globally. We could talk over a beer in depth about some of the interesting anecdotes that I've got from working in the likes of Bogota, Caracas, Moscow, extensively across Europe and North America. So I class myself very much as a global citizen, although I'm very proud to be British. I think culturally and in terms of recognition of other languages and religions with a very wide horizon. I got into the recruitment game 10 years ago when a company called NP Group said to me, Chris, we're on a transaction run. We want to manifest an exit within the next 3 to 5 years. And we've decided it would be good to have somebody on our board who is from the tech market, because that's actually the market that we serve. And you understand the vernacular and the psychology of that market. So we'd love to have someone on our side that understands how the target market works. Joined as chief of staff. Within 6 months, I was managing director. The division that I was managing director of became their fastest growing, profitable, most successful division globally. We opened offices across the US, in New York, and a practice in China. Obviously, an extremely busy and excellent team in London as well that I absolutely loved being a part of. It was a great chapter of my life, not just my career. We did realise the transaction on that business, where I moved over to become managing director of the world's largest pure play digital recruitment company called Salt. 8 offices around the world at the time and about 230 consultants, 80% of whom were in the patch that I was managing director for. And then after that, 7 years ago, myself and Amanda, it was actually Amanda that kind of kicked me over the edge on it. I realised that for certain personal reasons that maybe we'll get into, I needed to move on from Salt. And I was receiving job offers from some extremely well-known names in the recruitment industry to go in and be CEO of existing entities, or the merge or blend of a number of distressed acquisitions that they wanted to build and then make into one company. I think at one point it was Amanda that actually said to me, when are you going to realise that all of these people want you to go and make more money for them? Why don't you just back yourself and do it yourself? And I've never looked back since. Creating RedHolt is one of the best things that I've ever done, not only for me and for my kids and for Amanda's life, but really importantly to me, for the people that work at RedHolt. I've seen a lot of the people who've worked with us for years now turn from high potential young individuals that were living with their parents with all right vehicles, turn into high potential, high performing individuals that other people look at and go, wow, you travel all over the world with your company. You've got an amazing house and a brand new BMW. I love the fact that it's my company that has created the opportunity for them to have a life with that complexion. So yeah, RedHolt is an advanced recruitment organisation. We specialise across a number of different markets, but actually the market we operate in isn't the specialism as much as the methodology that we've got, where we use artificial intelligence extensively before we even approach people to headhunt them. It means that by the time we approach them, they are positively violated by what we know about them or their proclivities and how we can speak to them about them. It also means that the gravity associated to our approach comes across as very authentic, because we are able to say, look, this is what we already know about you, well, we think you're a high potential match. And generally the way that we construct a bridgehead from us to them in the way that we approach them is heavily orientated around video technology. So if you imagine, Cam, if I'm trying to fill a chief executive role and you're already a chief executive somewhere and you're somebody that I want to headhunt, if I've got an AI-based psychometric profile about you and I make a video in HD and I can embed that to an approach for you and talk about you and attach that psychometric profile, the chances are you're going to respond to that because you know that's not spam. And you're going to like the fact that somebody who's approaching you has got a real depth and an impressive type of approach. Typically recruitment companies in the UK have got a 30 to 35% response rate to their emails, their approaches. Ours is 80% plus, because we do stuff like that. So I'm really proud of what we do, and we're always pushing the boundaries and the frontiers of how we utilize technology and weave it together to make our proposition stack. And that stack is something that creates value for candidates and for clients. So you can probably tell I'm real proud of what we've got, and we've got big plans for the business over the next 3 to 5 years.
Amazing. I'm glad that you did that introduction, not me now, aren't you? Lots of information. There's an amazing journey. I mean, even just starting with, didn't know about the sale when you're 23. That's a pretty impressive stamp on your resume, isn't it? So it sounds like business has been a massive part of your life for many, many years now, isn't it? From the entrepreneurial days of the early stuff to, starting RedHolt as well now.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's the influence of my father, who is, very much my hero. People that follow my LinkedIn will realise that, the gravity that my dad has created in their life and still does. He was someone that left school at 15, worked in a tailor's, started off cleaning the doorstep, and then learned how to sell suits. And the sort of basic level sales discipline that I learned off my dad, that he learned from all of the jobs that he's had, but right from the tailor's days, still stick with me. That's the DNA of who I am from a salesperson's perspective. A commercial, I think, would be a better phrase that I'd like to use. But, my old man ended up being the field sales director for the biggest publishing company in the world, Random House Publishing. So I'm proud of his journey and the way that he managed to build himself up. And I didn't even really realise it, Cam, but, I now look back and realise that the books that my dad was giving me, because he was always in publishing, I just thought they were great books. I didn't realise he was feeding me with motivational books, business books, all of that sort of stuff. I just thought everyone's dad gave them those sort of books to read. So there I am reading some amazing books like Polar Bear Pirates, Who Moved My Cheese, real classics, and falling in love with leadership and business and not even really realising it. So by the time I moved the day after my GCSEs, I moved to Italy on my own. There's no mobile phones then. I just got myself a job and went for 4 months. And I had a high level of confidence and conviction about who I was and what the world was all about. A lot of it was wrong, but I had enough to get out there and do things that people at my age probably wouldn't have done, which is why at the age of 19, I started Trajectory, and then obviously sold that to Cube a few years later. But yeah, business is a big part of my life now, as well as then.
What an incredible story that your dad was doing that. When did you kind of realise that, actually he was doing this on purpose?
Probably a couple of years ago.
Really? Okay.
I think by the time, I was really lucky because my dad was a sales director and he used to go out for all of these dinners with authors and that sort of stuff. He used to invite me along. So I used to speak to these people, and to me, they were just my dad's work colleagues, but they weren't really. They were authors of bestsellers. And there I was sitting there having dinner with these people, like in a scenario that my dad had engineered, where I was just like you do when you're 15, 16, 17, and then maybe even older, just downloading all of this stuff that these thought leaders, these spearheads were sharing, because that's what their life was all about at the time. This was before Kindles were around. Bestseller meant a bestseller then, so yeah, I met some absolutely amazing people, and I didn't even realise what the magnitude of those meetings would be in terms of my North Star and who I would become.
it's massive for that. It sounds like the confidence side of things. I do it with my kids now. They're only 6 and 4, but we was out yesterday down by the river doing a bit of kayaking and stuff. And I say to them, I want to go and see if these little boys caught any fish. They go on, go and ask him then. Go and speak to him. It's just getting them to build that confidence up to go and speak to people. And that's what your dad was doing, right? Getting you talking to people and using the language. It's massive because I talk to a lot of CEOs, right? Like I am now. It takes you a little while to kind of understand. Right, they talk about business all the time. So if you can learn about business and sales and marketing, you have a similarity, right? And it ups your level of confidence because Joe Public's going to struggle with that because they're not in business. They don't really understand it.
Yeah, but I think there's another side to that as well. If you don't mind me saying so, that I think a lot of people think about CEOs as some sort of robot or bionic business machine. And what I always encourage the guys that work for me to remember and consider is that CEOs are also people who love to talk about their kids and who are also going on holiday and probably appreciate a bit of headspace just as much as anyone else does. And I think that there's, I think the way maybe LinkedIn has built people up and the way social media has built up this perceived gravity of a CEO, always flying around on a jet with multiple devices going and, multiple companies and all that sort of stuff. Some of that might be true, but people are people. And I think, earlier I talked about being a global citizen and all the places where I've worked and done business. I love the fact that people are people, and I feel like people can still cut through. In fact, people, CEOs especially, do cut through bullshit. And if someone's been disingenuous or lacks authenticity, I think that's what puts people off. People that are coming in with the big pitch, the PowerPoint. A CEO doesn't really need that. They just want to hear someone. I prefer it when someone presents to me without a deck. I want to listen to my intuition about the conviction that person has got when it comes to what they do. So, CEOs are just people like anyone else. It's, I think that's really important for people watching this who maybe are thinking, how do I make an approach to a CEO? Just make it. Like they're just someone else living their lives, and it's a high probability that they just want to be successful and for their family to be happy and healthy. And that's the top of most people's agendas. Why would most CEOs be any different to that?
I think the kids and families is always going to be a constant. It's looking after them. I think we'll switch this into a bit more about health now, because obviously that's the name of the podcast is what I do on a daily basis. But on your journey from that 19-year-old boy that went to Italy and lived on his own and all the different places you've been, a little bit of honesty now around what effect has that had on you from a health point of view, from a weight point of view, from a stress point of view. How's that journey been for you along the way?
So it's interesting because I've always been someone that's really into fitness. Always. Like I've done London Marathon twice. When I was younger, I used to run cross country extensively. I was always massively into rugby. I've always been a member of a gym, all of that sort of stuff. But, being totally honest with you, it wasn't really my career that's affected my health that much. Probably did, like living on aeroplanes, not being as conscious of nutrition as I should have, definitely drinking too much. But it was a divorce that I went through nearly a decade ago that still to this day is heavy. It's really hard. Divorces are, going back to the CEO thing, when you're trying to own the accountability that you've got for keeping a business going and all of the mouths that you've got to feed within your own business, not just your own family, it's a heavy weight of responsibility. And divorces are things that can literally blast someone's life apart. And I think that, when the wheels started to come off on my view of my own health and how important that was and how I should be prioritizing it, was when I went through an extremely turbulent divorce, really, really turbulent divorce. And I had massive amounts of dad guilt, massive amounts, as well as trying to, be the nice guy in the divorce to try and make sure it wasn't as abrasive as possible. It took me years to realize that actually, sometimes you just can't be that. Situations that are that frosty just have to be dealt with in the way they have to be dealt with. So, although I've been a business leader for a long time, like I was saying earlier, business leaders still have stuff, right, in their personal lives. And I think that affected my mental health a lot. I've had some really massive low points over the course of the last few years that I don't mind admitting, real dark moments. And similarly, some of the best times in my life where I felt like the reason I got out of that marriage was to be me and the person that, I wanted to be. And I've been able to do that. And that's where you get the kick on moments where you're like, I'm living life now. This is some of the dark places that I've been through. This is it. So yeah, that's what, nearly 10 years ago. And I think that there's a lot of blokes out there that I speak to and have spoken to and helped over the last few years, so that, hopefully they don't have to trip over some of the landmines that unfortunately I was subject to were extremely explosive.
I mean, it needs to be spoken about, and thanks for being open and honest about that, because that's what we need to do as men, right? Is to talk about stuff, because it's very easy to not do that, and it gets very overwhelming, doesn't it? I mean, to go through something like that is, as you mentioned, it's turbulent. Did you find that fitness and training was kind of like your North Star? It kept you moving forward through that?
I found that most aspects of my life going through that over the last few years, it's not just, people say, I went through ups and downs, and you're going to go, oh, his life is going through ups and downs. But if you break that down further, different aspects of your life are going through ups and downs at different points. So you're going through all of these emotional oscillations, and you got all of these plates spinning. Stuff's good with the kids, but bad with the business. Stuff's good with the business, but bad with my ex-wife. Stuff's great, right? So, and it's the same with my health. I had moments where I felt like in COVID, I ran 10 kilometers a day every day. And then when I got back, I worked out in the gym that I had at the house for an hour. Cam, I was in ridiculous shape, honestly, ripped up. And I loved it. It's probably the healthiest I've ever been, apart from now. But similarly, I've had moments where I don't mind admitting it. I haven't just drowned my low moments at the bottom of a bottle. I've lived at the bottom of the bottle. Like, people probably wouldn't have seen that because of my social media and all that sort of stuff, and seeing me on LinkedIn, like, happy, successful, positive. But, when the cameras are off and you're not posting stuff on Instagram and all that sort of stuff, you're still dealing with all the emotions. There's the behind the scenes moments. I've got some close friends and my wife and my brother and my mum and dad, I'm sure, would say, there's been some moments we were worried about Chris. So, yeah, I mean, and at those moments, everything goes out the window, mate. It's dangerous. Everything, you're lucky to pull yourself out of those moments before things start to get damaged that you can't fix. So yeah, and you see some horror stories about people that don't recover these low points in their health, mental and physical, before it turned into something catastrophic, which fortunately it never did for me. But yeah, that's what the complexion of life gets like when you've got all of these big things going on.
Mate, I mean, we had it with when COVID happened. We had a real nice setup in the city, luxury gym, beautiful facilities, people walking through. For life's good, we're starting to grow now. And then COVID just struck and we lost everything overnight. And I know there'll be lots of people with very, very similar stories. And I think
there is, mate.
It's a weird one because I didn't really realise how shit I felt until I started to come out the other side of it. You look back and think, I probably put on 5-6 kilos. I was drinking red wine and trying to use that as a stress reliever because you felt like shit all the time. It's overeating, not training as much as you should do. So I get it. And this is the thing. I did a video this morning and it's like everyone in health and fitness always gives off this kind of glamour thing of like, look at me, I've got a six-pack, I'm in the gym all the time. There's not an industry in the world that's more full of bullshit than health and fitness. It's just literally this shiny Instagram thing, and no one's got the bollocks really to say, well, actually, I had a shit time and I wasn't in great shape. And the thing is as well, if people that are in health and fitness can go through this stuff, imagine what it's like when you're not in health and fitness. You haven't got that kind of drive to work out all the time, it can be very, very challenging for people. Very challenging.
You know, I think there's another point around this that accentuates it for successful leaders as well, and successful people, whatever your version of success might constitute. And that is people who have got extremities in their personality that facilitate success. Those extremities will also come out in other aspects of their life. I'll tell you what the example, the anecdote about me. At that time when I was in COVID, when I was running 10 kilometers a day and killing it and going I'd come in from the run and straight into the gym because of lucky enough to have a big house back in the UK and we had a good, proper big gym, big screen up in the house. So I'd come straight in from the run into the gym. Those nights, I'd still drink at least one bottle of wine each night. And fairly frequently, I'd probably put two away. First one just goes down. Second one helps you get to sleep. And, it's like, but that's because of my personality. I'm all or nothing. And I think that I'm 44 now, I think when you reach a certain stage or something happens to you, like, we'll talk about in a second that's happened to me recently. You reach a stage where it's just a light bulb moment. It's a wake up call and you're like, what am I doing? And, like now I look back and I think I was actually having this chat with the guy who was my personal trainer before the second London Marathon I did. And, I was in amazing shape back then in COVID. It's funny because in COVID, everyone was talking about, you had people that got really fit or people that like drunk too much. I was doing both. And, I was chatting to Sam and I was in amazing shape then. And Sam said to me, it's amazing. Just imagine what your shape would have been if you weren't stacking 2 bottles of calorific wine on top of that. Like, you'd have been in better shape. The reality is the way it was, I'm not even, I wouldn't say I'm proud of it, but it's part of my story. It's what it is. So, and I'm proud of where I am now. So, I just, I think when you get people that are super successful, you get these extremities and it accentuates what some of the challenges can be and what the problems associated with those challenges can be.
I know you've got, obviously because of what you do, you've got a lot of insight into character, right? And I see it a lot into people that are running businesses or CEOs. And they even say it, I'm all or nothing. Everyone says the same things. I'm either on or I'm off. And you and I both know it's in the middle. With health and fitness, is that consistency. You can go up here, you can go down here, but as long as you kind of always moving forward, that's all you can kind of do because, there will be events in the diary. There will be weekends where you've got a wedding and a funeral, all this stuff going on. So as long as you're always working out, you're always moving forward, that's all you can ask because the ups and downs are going to come. As you said, if you're successful, you've probably got that character trait anyway.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, go ahead, mate.
I was going to say, I feel as though one of the other things about it is just people who are really busy get spooked by how the hell they're going to fit fitness in. Like I'm too busy. I've not got an hour to go to the gym. And, the philosophy that I've got on life that I've always had probably came from one of the meetings I had with my dad and an author, is that one of the things that unites everyone on earth is that we've all got 24 hours a day. If each one of those hours was a gold coin, super successful people work out how to spend those coins so that they get a return. And the one of those coins that could constitute the hour in the gym has actually got a very evident return in many ways. It's like wishing that you got into Bitcoin earlier when you're 70 and you realize that your heart's knackered because you should have invested earlier. That's the one gold coin a day that you should be spending in the gym. But, you live and learn. I feel like that's one of the things that spooks people is the perception that you haven't got enough time. Well, no one's got enough time then because you've got as much time as everybody else.
You just made my new advert.
There you go, mate.
So from your point of view then, this is interesting because what's nice with these conversations is when people kind of take it in a direction where they've kind of fixed the problem that they had, which you're basically telling us, right? So if there's people watching this that the busiest people in the world, because everyone is, right? What's the one thing that, or the two or three things that you do on a weekly basis which help you to fit your workouts in? What do you do?
I try and make it part of my schedule. I've always done that. So when I was managing director at Salt, I used to live in Langdon in Essex, and the offices were in Waterloo. So I had to go to work, I had to travel to work. So what I used to do was I used to run from home to the station in Langdon, get the train into Fenchurch Street, and then I'd run over Tower Bridge and down, all the way down the river to Waterloo. I think it's probably like a 5 or 6K run in total. And if I could, I'd do that in the evening. A lot of the time I'd be out for dinner. But if you do that every day and make it part of your schedule, actually you realise that what you'd have probably been doing for that whole journey is zombie scrolling across a number of different platforms, getting fatter, consuming your bacon sarnie on the way into work. And whereas you could have been making it part of your morning ritual, and I didn't have to go to the gym. All I went to the gym was, fortunately we had a gym next door to the office. So I used to run straight into the gym. I'd have a shower, get changed. 10 minutes later, I'd be at my desk. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is disarming this feeling that you can't be fit and do what you need to do. In this most recent chapter, I've definitely 100% proved that to myself. I've realised that the amount of calories that we take on board as modern day humans is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. We don't need it. Like the amount of calories that I took on board before the health check that I had, I sort of think I thought I'm a big bloke, I need it. And I like it. A lot of those calories are either a beer or a nice meal or whatever. So whatever, it's all right. When you start looking back at those and doing it every single day, I realised why I had put on 30 kilograms over the course of the last 4 years or so. Mental. Yeah. And that's what I've lost in the course of the last 4 months.
Wow.
So, that's point number one, just kind of disarming what modern day life sort of subconsciously leads you towards doing. I'd be conscious of what you put in your mouth. I don't feel any less energy now when I'm consuming between 1,500 and 2,000 calories to what I felt like when I was putting probably 5,000. I don't. In fact, if anything, I feel better because I'm lighter, I'm more younger and that sort of stuff. And the other thing I think is exercise, right? And the relationship between physical exercise and mental health. Like, believe it or not, the weight that I've lost recently, the only exercise really associated to that until the last few weeks is walking. Like, and I actually think that's a really good thing for senior leaders to do, because the number of, if I go on I've got a lap near where I live, right, and it goes around the Emirates golf course, and the full lap is 8 kilometres. 8 kilometres between 8 to 900 calories. It takes me about an hour and a quarter to do. And sometimes I do it twice, 16 kilometres. So I nearly do 2,000 calories, right? Net, it's not uncommon over the course of the last few months to have had a calorie deficit at the end of the day. Because if you're consuming, let's say 2,000, then doing a 2,000 calorie walk and just general life means you're going to burn 1,500 anyway, you're definitely going to be losing weight. You're going to be losing a serious amount of weight. But while I've been doing that walk, I've been doing conference calls, calling people that I wish I'd had more time to speak to, like my mum. I've been listening to podcasts, and the accumulative sum every day of doing those things just puts you in a better place. It puts you in a better frame of mind. And you get to a point where you're like, this is where I want to be. I'm actually getting to my best now. And it's not just because I look good or because I'm physically healthier. It's because that's helping my head and my heart get in a better place. It's been amazing, actually, Cam, over the last 4 months or so, to realise how much more calm I am. Everyone said it. My brother's like my best mate. And he's like, you're like a different person, mate. He said, I wouldn't say you were aggressive before, but it's made me feel like you were a more aggressive person because your fuse was a bit shorter. Like now I'm a lot more easygoing. I think that's probably got something to do with blood pressure. Right? I had 5.5 liters of visceral fat sitting on my internal organs. For someone of my body composition, with like between 2 and 2.5, and that comes from boozing. So all of that internal fat was putting pressure on my organs, making my blood pressure go higher, which is making various other bodily functions do things that they shouldn't be doing, insulin creation, etc. And I haven't got that. I haven't got that pressure now, so it's not surprising really that I feel a lot more calm about when some shit happens or something's going on. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do about this? Just approach it a bit differently.
Amazing. I can see you lighting up. It's good to see. I can see you enjoying talking about it as well, because what you've done there is what a lot of people look at and go, "How am I ever going to do that?" So I think you come up with some absolute nuggets there. I think the walking thing is massive, because if you look at your day, and this is talk about business leader, and they're extremely busy, which I get, and it's a genuine thing. Like, they're literally getting up the train, in the office, all that stuff, right? The walking element, as you've mentioned, conference calls, networking calls. There's all stuff that you can do while you walk. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, which is incredible. So what we normally say, I mean, you're smashing it, 8K. A lot of people won't want to do that, but even them hitting 7,500 steps through the day by getting up for half an hour during the day and doing a call is a game changer, because suddenly you're moving 5 times a week when you weren't moving at all, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, totally. Do you know, there's another saying that I say to a lot of my guys, and equally applicable to as it is to them when I'm using that example, as it is to exercise. Doing something is 100% more than doing nothing. So even if you only go out and do 1K, 1 kilometre, 100% more than nothing. And I don't think people should beat them up about not being able to do the amount of exercise that you might have liked to have done. That's just life. But do something. It's give to yourself the opportunity to do something, because it's when it's too late, it's too late. That was the wake up call that I had in the medical that I went for, and it's changed my life.
What did they say? What did the doctor say?
So let me give you the backstory of why I went for the medical. First of all, there's a guy called David Singleton out here in Dubai. David's a good friend of mine. Life has delivered us on paths that ended up converging. And I had started doing one of my things, which was going out for a 5K run. This is when I was 100 kilograms, 2 or 3 times a week. And I put it on LinkedIn that I'd done it and all that sort of stuff. And David picked up on it. David's in his early to mid 50s. David picked up on it and he's like, I'll come for a run with you one day. We'll do it. And this guy just fucking smashed it. Trying to keep up with him. This is a fact. I actually set a personal best just trying to keep up with him. Took 3 minutes off my previous time trying to keep up with this bloke that's 10 years older than me. Yeah. And I was done. And I was like, mate, you're in amazing shape for your age. And this guy, right, is like the non-exec director in the catering industry, food and beverages. So he advises some top-notch global brands in Dubai, where that's a big industry. And he's always around food in the best restaurants in the world, right? He could easily be very fat, that guy could, but he's not. He looks like a former SAS drill sergeant. He's lean. I'm not talking about muscles bulging out everywhere, but you look at him, you're like, fit as a butcher's dog, that bloke. And he said to me, Chris, I went for a medical 10 years ago, and they told me I was a heart attack, a walking heart attack, just waiting to happen. So I got stuff in order, and I started doing X, Y, Z. He was like, you should go and see them. They're in Dubai. A guy called Sean Penny at a place called the Badaya Clinic. And it was probably a couple of months I sat on it. And eventually I just thought, I tell you what it was, I realised I was waking up in the morning and feeling down. I was just getting fat. When you're going to beach clubs and all that sort of stuff here in Dubai, it's not a cool look, especially feeling like that. And I was just getting down and not even really wanting to get out of bed. And that's not me. I've never been like that in my life. At a point really where my business is successful and, got brilliant relationships and everything was good, but I'm like waking up in the morning feeling like Can't be bothered to get up. I'll stay in bed for another 10 minutes. I've never been like that. Never been like that, Cameron. So I was like, I need to go for this medical. So I went and he did like a full, did all my bloods, checked everything, you know, and even before the results came back, he said, I can tell you now, with the abdominal fat that I can see you're carrying, you're a massive risk of heart disease. He did a check. He said to me, Chris, you've got the heart of a 55-year-old and you're 44. You know, you're at risk of this, you're at risk of that, you're pre-diabetic. The amount you're drinking is unhealthy. You've got all this visceral fat sitting on your organs. The amount of different chemicals, forgive me, Cam, I can't remember what the names for them were. It's like you've effectively got a form of blood rust in your blood. He said, if I were you, he literally said this. He said, if I were you, I'd go straight from here to a blood donor centre and I'd donate blood. Because when you bloodlet, your bone marrow has to work and it helps. He said, anybody that doesn't donate blood once every 3 months or 6 months, absolutely start doing it. Give your bone marrow the best chance to do what it's supposed to do and refresh your white blood cells that only hold your blood in your body. I thought, well, I never thought of that. It's obvious. I know that. I'm not stupid. I just never had. And so yeah, anyway, you know, like I just got onto it. Just started. It was the kick that I needed. Stop drinking beer. Stop drinking wine. Whenever I'm not alcohol free. Whenever I do have a drink now, I only drink vodka. Eating a lot less when it comes to my calorie intake. You know, it's just, I literally started that day when I came out of the medical, you know, and I've done a few things like using supplements and whatever to make sure that the intake that I've got and the nutrition that I've got in my body, I've never done that before, never taken supplements. So I'm pretty religious about that now, like just thinking about the chemical composition of what I'm putting into my body and what my body needs. In fact, I've become a bit obsessive about that. But they're just things I never thought of before. And I think a lot of people don't think of them, but they don't require a lot of intellectual horsepower to actually start thinking about them. You know, it's just,
with the doctor shock. I hear that a lot, but they go and have a checkup and it's like, you need to sort yourself out.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant if people take action before that point, but sometimes you need a doctor to go, you need to sort yourself out because you're going to have a heart attack.
Oh, I needed it. The thing is, I know, right? I can be a very headstrong, egotistical person. And that's part of what you see, again, in the composition of high-performing people. I've seen it with people that work for me. And I'm big enough and ugly enough now to recognise that trait of myself, especially when I've been younger. But I think once you get a bit of humility about that characteristic, you know when to turn it off and when to turn it on. Like you turn it on when you need to be a business spearhead and get stuff done and be brave and all that sort of stuff. Turn it off when you're thinking about your own health. You know, that's when you don't need to be egotistical. Yeah, you know,
be vulnerable.
Don't need to do that. Be vulnerable. It's the perfect way to describe it. Yeah, realise you are vulnerable. You're just human.
Yeah, just because you're, you know, quote unquote successful and you've got a Maserati doesn't make it any different than the next person because your body's your body, right? And it's a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. And you know, unfortunately, I speak to a lot of people that are like you but didn't take action and kept doing what they did and haven't had a heart attack. Unfortunately, they've gone down the route of more and more and more medication. And once you're on that route, it's a one-way train to more medication. There's no way else.
But that's what he said to me in that meeting. He went, Chris, you got this, you got this, you got this, you got. He said, if you don't fix these things now, they will be individually things that need to be fixed with medication, like your blood pressure, in 3 to 10 years' time. And they'll be big things. You'll be on a lot of medication. He said, if you do one thing now, it'll fix all of those. Just lose weight.
Yeah.
So, and that was it for me. I was like, hang on a minute, you know, be a tiger about this decision. Don't be a puppy. Make the right choice and hit the target with one shot. So that's why I was like, absolutely, you know, today it starts now, today, this minute.
You're right. It's the excess weight causes so many health problems. It's crazy. It sounds oversimplified, but it's not. If you just lose a little bit of weight, things. I mean, obviously we're not medical doctors, but once people go back to the doctor after 2 months and they've lost 10, 15, 20 kilos, they go, the doctor was absolutely blown away by my weight loss, and now I've stopped taking my warfarin, my statins, my diabetes, my metformin, because they don't need them anymore because they're back in decent shape at a healthy weight. It's incredible. Just a big question for you now, because I'd like to wrap up kind of around the 45-minute mark. We've got a company vision now of kind of impacting the business world. So what we see is that individuals like yourself, when they start getting in shape, looking after their health, it starts to inspire people in the team, family, friends, because they see you doing it, right? Like with you, with David, wasn't it?
Yeah, David Singleton. Yeah.
You went, I want to do that. How do I get like that, right? So a big question now, and I know you're in Dubai, but also you've seen a lot of different countries and how businesses work in different countries, right? From your point of view, do you see a positive change in the general health of business leaders? Do you think it's changed over the last 10 years? Do you think people become more conscious of it, or do you think it's the same as it was?
I think that there is, I think mental health is behind a lot of the physical problems that anybody has, leaders included, they're just humans too. And I think the improved platform that people have got for challenges that they might be facing from a mental health perspective is the key to unlock and address those things before they become protracted long-term physical challenges because of the way someone conducts themselves when they're in pain. I was listening to something about alcoholism recently. Someone said something and they said that alcoholism is about pain and it's about numbing the pain. It's a form of medication in the mind of the participant. And I thought, yeah, that rings a lot of bells with me. So if that's true, I think we've got an improved platform nowadays to address mental health challenges. The nub of your question, though, is it better now than it was? I'm not sure it is net. I do see a lot of leaders that are in amazing shape, but I also see a lot of leaders that are not. And I think ultimately the bottom line is holistically, emotionally as well as physically and spiritually as well, are you in a better place? What's the blend of those things? Because just because you look great physically doesn't necessarily mean you are in a great place from a mental health perspective. So no, I don't think I feel as though people are in a better or worse place. I don't think I've seen it change that much. But I think it's good that, particularly for men, I think it's good for blokes that we're now in a world that's more embracing of the fact that men do have challenges too. And the way that blokes conduct themselves when they're under moments of pressure or in pain emotionally can be really catastrophic.
It feels to me like more people are talking about it, most definitely. So I feel like the awareness is getting better. I mean, obviously, many of our clients are London-based, so we see the city culture, right, which is a lot of drinking, a lot of eating, and it's not, from a health perspective, it's not a great culture. I see insurance and finance being back in the kind of dark ages in general when it comes to that side of things. We see people like companies that are in tech more so, getting more into kind of initiatives for their staff, trainers coming in, more healthy eating, that side of things. So I feel there's more awareness around it, and obviously we this is what we do, right? So it's interesting to get your take on it and see what the next 10 years could look like.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is the right thing to say or not, but I think one of the problems with the city is the abundance and availability of drugs. And I think that a lot of people don't realise how it's not just kids going out to nightclubs that do drugs. And I think that can affect a lot of professionals as well, especially in that city lifestyle where these people are making a lot of money. And it's a very glamorous lifestyle, and there's a lot of pressure. So, that's a third point on the wheel where that's a slightly more sensitive one to talk about, but it's there. It's definitely there, whether people want to admit it or not. And it ain't just kids doing it. It goes right up to the top of the chain, and people are of an age that might feel shocking to a lot of people. So, I feel like London is a really, really high pressure place to be. Really high pressure. And there's a lot of temptations in London where that affect people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad that I don't live there anymore, if I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah. So I suppose, from a cultural point of view, Dubai doesn't have that, right? Or nowhere near as much, not as prevalent, I assume. No.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Look, at the end of the day, you're always going to get criminal activity, right? Especially when it comes to that sort of thing. But I've never been exposed to any of those sort of situations in Dubai, and everyone that I speak to has got a healthy fear of that sort of thing. And actually, they're really glad that that's the case, me included.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's definitely 100% in Dubai. There's much, much more focus on fitness, health, positivity, all of those sort of things. And it's almost infectious. It's like when you're around positive people, when you're around healthy people, you don't have to go very far in Dubai before someone jogs past you, even in the heat. Like yesterday, it's 43 degrees here, and I saw someone out running.
Not in the city, though.
It's just what you do. The last night I went out for an 8-kilometre walk, it was 35 degrees, like at night, and I loved it. So yeah, anyway, mate, It's interesting. You get the mood music in different geographic locations is different. That affects the people in each one of those vicinities differently, depending on where they are emotionally and mentally.
I think the city's a project, right? So it's a project. I think there's, it's a big conversation. I think what we're trying to do, I think what we're trying to do is, have an impact as best we can to try and, those people at the top of the tree. If you can start to get those guys to change, that will have a positive impact on the team underneath them and their families and society. 100%. So that for us, and we've seen it many times, once you start affecting that person, their senior executives see it, and then the team see it, and it starts to trickle down. So we'll keep chipping away.
I've had that. I've had that in my personal life, over the last few months with me. Like one of my best friends here, I won't name him, but, he actually sent me a message. He's lost a bit of timber, and I saw him for the first time in a few months at the weekend. I was like, mate, you're looking good, how's it go? And he sent me a text message this morning that I really appreciated. He was like, mate, you're part of the inspiration from me wanting to get on it and start getting fitter. Same age as me, exactly the same age as me. Big rugby type of guy, loves to drink, very sociable. But I told him about my medical, and what they said to me. I think he's a bit like, so now he's following the trend, which is brilliant. It's nice to feel as though you can have that sort of influence on people's lives that makes them healthier for their families.
Makes it worth it, right? Makes you want to get up and get on that treadmill in the morning.
Oh, mate, I woke up this morning and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
You feeling good, feel like I'm in a good place. You feel good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, at a good stage in my journey at the moment.
Brilliant. Well, Chris, thanks for your time, mate. We've done a 50-minute there, which is great. I try and keep it to 45 minutes. We had a good chat there, so thanks for that. If people want to check you out, if they want to look at your company website, a little bit more about it, where can they go to? Where can they find you?
So company website is www.redholt.net, REDHOLT. That's the blend of my name, Redmond, and my wife's name, Holt. That's where that comes from if anyone ever wanted. But the place where I'd go to, get some proximity to my journey and become a part of the fabric of that is LinkedIn. I'm extremely open on LinkedIn, extremely active, and hopefully extremely approachable. So if anybody does want to drop me a message and go, mate, I'd love a chat to you. I'm a big believer in the philosophy of if you do good, you get good. So if there's anybody listening to this thinking, I'd love a chat to that bloke, then don't be reticent to reach out. I'd love to help you.
Fantastic. That's genuine, because that was me too, right? I reached out to you and then we started chatting, and here we are sitting on the podcast, so case in point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, on the final note from me, Cam, I think what you're doing is awesome. And, I think you're part of a push among a community of individuals, senior leaders that know they need the type of service that you guys offer. It's just about managing to arrest their attention for long enough and let them know what the consequences probably are of not getting on board. Because I think once someone appreciates what that cost is, if they're worried about whatever the cost of your services is going to be, it pales into insignificance in terms of the cost of the route that they might be going down. So keep up the good work, mate. I think it's brilliant.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time again, Chris, and we'll catch up soon.
Pleasure.